You see me now, the veteran of the OGL Wars. I thought they were over, but there's much more in store. Just when you think you've seen the last of the news. Oh, please don't let these shakes go on. Good morning and welcome. It's 8:10 in the morning. It is the 5th day of April 2024. It is 44 degrees and sunny here at Site B. I am on my first cup of coffee. It's Friday, which means we really never have anything to talk about on Friday. So we're going to do what we occasionally do on Fridays and try and get caught up on any tabletop role-playing game news that we might have missed during the week. And of course, check in on the what's going on with the OGL Wars today. I mean, have we got any updates on any of the companies? Con season is almost upon us, starting technically in June, but a lot of the smaller cons are already rolling along. So we're expecting to start seeing some releases. I do have an update from DC20 Dungeon Coach on what he is planning and when we can expect the Kickstart. And more importantly, after last night, I do have some news about the upcoming Bloody Arduin Kickstarter. Oh my God, I'm so excited about this. So first, let's check with our friends at ENWorld and see what we missed. Download the Lego's Red Dragon Tail thing. We talked about this yesterday. This is the free adventure that came with the Lego Adventure Dungeons & Dragons 50th edition thing. They made a big deal. How the game has no rules. Here's this adventure. It has no rules, except of course it does have rules. They're just not D&D 5e rules. And I can only assume that they were trying to be controversial by choosing that phrasing, because there's only two ways to respond to that. You either respond extremely negative, which they were expecting from the old school, or extremely positive, as they're expecting from the Dungeons & Dragons Wizards of the Coast 2024 shills. But it was a blatant advertising bait and switch, because there are rules. We also got the announcement that the characters from the D&D cartoon will have their figures available in the new upcoming set, but don't get excited because they are the ultra rare surprise characters, which means unless you buy the full set, you have no guarantee to get these characters. You could buy 20 boxes and not get a single one. And it's not all of them, because some of them were in that one they did last year or the year before for the module. There's been a lot of hubbubaloo about whether those were or were not the kids, but after the movie, they want us to think they were the kids. I go by what the guy who created the cartoon says. I don't care what Wizards of the Coast says about the fate of the kids. The guy who wrote the script and wrote the story is the end-all be-all, just like Ed is the end-all be-all about Forgotten Realms. The guy who wrote the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon is the fate tells me the fate. So if Wizards of the Coast wants us to say, yeah, they're still around, they're still alive, they haven't aged, we still don't know what's up with Bobby and having a pet unicorn, because only virgin females can have a unicorn. Is Bobby the first transgender character in D&D? Maybe, or maybe he was a girl just dressing up like a boy. I guess we'll never know. Don't care. But these figures are available. So if you've always wanted a figure of Eric or Bobby or the other one, I don't know if there's going to be ones Avenger and Dungeon Master, but they will be very, 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 very hard to get. So yeah. Apparently Todd Steshwick is doing a D&D charity stream. He's another actor who's come out of nowhere claiming he's a long-term D&D fan, even though nobody's ever heard about his association with D&D until recently. He was in the Star Trek Picard show. He played one of the captains or something like that. He's got a live charity play with Jonathan Frakes, Will Riker, Deborah Ann Wool, who we know is a D&D fan and has been around for a while and has earned her D&D chops. Michelle, what's that name? Michelle Hood, who was also in the Picard show. Don't know about her history with the hobby. Never heard of her before. And, of course, Will Wheaton, whose reputation in the gaming community, let's face it, isn't very good. seems to have gone out of his way to make himself a very disagreeable individual as far as the gaming community is concerned. He's gone after Critical Role he's gone after his past with Star Trek. I really find it hard to believe that Frakes and Wheaton could either be at the same table. He got kicked out of Acquisitions Incorporated. So yeah, that's really weird that he would have Wheaton and Frakes, because as far as I know, they don't get along, but whatever. It'll be interesting. And there's some more stuff on D&D Beyond as more and more companies who claim they would never sell out after the OGL have somehow been convinced to sell out under the new contract, even though they are, giving up the rights and everything. But whatever, I guess little money now as opposed to lots of money later is more important. So yeah, there we go. There's that. Now then, time for the OGL Wars. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, here we go. The Diablo tabletop role-playing game. Remember they announced a Diablo tabletop role-playing game? So here it is. And nothing. No new news. You can fill out your email thing to get notified when the campaign launches in 2024. It will be based upon Diablo 4 and the Lilith storyline. Whether it has any references to the other storylines or not, I don't know. I think most people wanted it to be Diablo 2, maybe Diablo 3, but Diablo 4 has very little to do with Big D. It's all about Lilith and, changing the theme every 2 weeks to keep people interested in. So I don't know. And I also think it's like about 100 years too late to do a Diablo role-playing game, especially if you're going to base it on 4. Most of us who are Diablo fans and love Diablo, it's Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. Maybe Diablo 3, but yeah, definitely had you based it on Diablo 2, I think more people will be excited. But so there's that. Then we also had the announcement of the Brandon Sanderson. Did I watch Tanker's Tavern this morning? No, I haven't yet. What did he talk about? So this was announced after the OGL Wars of last year. Brandon Sanderson was doing his own role-playing game based upon the Stormlight archives. This is supposed to be coming out this year. It uses an original system, but contains elements that most players will find familiar. So 5e light. You can sign up to be submitted to know when it's going live, but as of now, nothing. No movement on that. Not that I expected any. Probably most of these games we won't even see movement on till 2025. Here's another one that got announced this year. The Assassin's Creed role-playing game. Again, about 20 years too late. The deluxe box comes with all these cool-looking toys, some free figures. It looks like they're just starting the Kickstarter. Wow, $35. Other than that, nothing. Pre-order Kickstarter just starting. Looks like it uses a modified D6 system with weird things on the dice. Yeah, let's make a role-playing game about a video game that's all about one person and time travel. Yeah, and it's from a company that mostly does miniatures. So the miniatures will look good, but and no movement on that either. Now some more exciting news regarding the playtest of DC 20 and what Dungeon Coach has planned. We can expect the Kickstarter to go live in June for DC 20. So the beta test should be available in June, which means he should have a copy to hand out to the press by Gen Con in August, which is very exciting for him. I got a chance to work with some of the designers and some people who played the game, as you know, and I've been going over it. The other day, I got to do a character creation rundown. So yes, it is. No offense to Dungeon Coach, he is very excited. He is very passionate. He thinks the way I do. I think he and I have a lot more common. He just shotguns. So if you go through the alpha test, it is just a shotgun of ideas. He just puts them down, and they're kind of in order. And when you try and made the character, there's a lot of going back and forth and a lot of formulas that seem clunky at first. But then when you really go through them, you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. Okay, I see what you're trying to do. I'm still not sure what DC's target audience is. It's obviously a much more complicated version of 5e, but it definitely is 5e, Pathfinder, 4e adjacent. There's a lot of stuff from 4e in here. There's a lot of stuff from Pathfinder in here. There's a lot of stuff from a couple other games in here. He claims, when I asked him about it, he's like, I'd never heard of those games. It was like, maybe consciously you didn't, but subconsciously, yeah. I mean, there's no new ideas, right? So I built a character with this gentleman named Pete. It took us about an hour. Some of the stuff I got a better understanding of. Others I still don't get. Just right now it feels like it's unnecessarily complicated, but I think that's not intentional. And of course, you also have to remember I'm an autistic, dyslexic, OCD, and fucking old. So what might make sense to somebody else doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's not putting DC down, because there's a lot of stuff in here that could be good. I don't know what his target audience is. Is it frustrated 5e players? Is it people who are looking for a more tactical 5e style play? I mean, it's got a lot of stuff that feels very much like 5e or 4e or Pathfinder. But then he has mana points, stamina points, physical defense, mental defense, different stats. He's got the skills and the backgrounds. He's got lots of races. He's got this interesting thing where at second level, you can choose to sort of dip into another class and sort of multi-class, but not really, where you get to pick one thing from the first level abilities of that class, or you could continue to focus on your class. So we built a second level cleric, and as my second level, I wanted to dip into rogue, because clerics, there's nothing they can't do. So I wanted to pick up some of the rogue skills, but because of the way he built rogues in DC right now, they're not the kind of rogue that you think they are. They're battlefield sappers. They're, the guys who run around and slice people's tendons, and they're not the sneak ahead, pick locks, pick traps type rogue. So, and that's what I wanted to add into the character, was his, a little bit of thievery in his background before he found God. But no, so I just decided to take the stat boost instead of anything else. But I like the idea that you can dip in instead of going full-blown multi-class. I think we know that a lot of people will like that because it gives you more versatility. It's too scattered. It's not clunky, it's scattered. And so I'm hoping when the first beta test comes out in June, it will be more linear, and then we can finally get a feel of what he's trying to do, because right now he's looking to compete with Daggerheart and D&D, right? And whatever else is coming out in 2024, 2025. And he's, shooting for 2025. And I think a lot of the companies now, as I discussed last night with the gentleman at Emperor's Choice, are thinking 2025. All right. And now to end the evening or the day or whatever this is, was very excited last night to be invited to sit in on a live stream with Shadow and Son, where they interviewed the individuals from Emperor's Choice game about the brand new Arduin Bloody Arduin that's coming out, being kickstarted later this year. So if you are familiar with the legacy of David Hargrave, the Westcoast style of role-playing, and Arduin, and just the influence Arduin has had on the gaming industry, I don't think a lot of people realize how influential the Arduin Grimoire was on the gaming industry, and how much other things borrowed from Arduin. There's a lot of ideas that Hargrave came up with first that you now see all over the place. So after a long wibbly wobbly legalese business. Emperor's Choice has the rights to all the Arduin stuff. They have all Dave's stuff. They've got boxes full of Hargrave stuff dating all the way back to the 77, 78 when the Grimoire first came out. And they have been slowly rebuilding it, organizing it, making maps. They're kickstarting it later this year. I got a chance to talk about them. Their excitement is addictive. It was so, for me, it was so wonderful. It was so cathartic to talk to these guys and to talk about how we played old school here in the West Coast. Because time and time again, you hear me talk about how I played as opposed to how these other people claim they played, you know, and like, oh no, nobody played like that. That's not how we played. Well, apparently I'm not alone. There are other people who remember playing in the 80s and the late 70s the same way I remember, and the early 90s. And that is, you know, as the Emperor Choice people coined it yesterday, the West Coast style. You know, and if you remember when I was going through the whole West Coast Grognard thing, where Garrity was trying to insult me by calling me West Coast Grognard, and I owned it and I copyrighted it. Haha, fuck you, Garrity. And these guys are like, yeah, no, there was a West Coast style. It was different. And like everybody was talking about it. So it felt really cathartic. So I'm really excited to see this come out. I don't know how these guys are going to compete, you know, and how you put Arduin out and without people going, it's, you know, you can just see what people are going to say about it. It's too overpowered. It's too random. It's another Sparkle Troll D&D is superheroes game. It's not old school, even though it is the most old school of all the old school games. And there's no original ideas in it, which actually, if you look at the history, all the ideas in Arduin were original. Everybody else copied Hargrave. Don't know what system it is. It's Arduin. It's not OGL. It's not ORC. It's their own system. If I remember correctly, it was percentile based. A lot of the stuff in Arduin graduated to go into RuneQuest, graduated to go into DCC, graduated to go into Bloodright, on Warp World, Rifts, all these other games that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, the Rifts, the Warp World, the Fringeworthy, the Thundar, the Barbarian, fantasy sci-fi games, all influenced by Arduin. Arduin did it first. So very excited about that. We'll definitely follow that. You know, how we that other guy always does, like how D&D and whatever. I think, you know, I'm probably going to do the same thing where I just start going Arduin and whatever. Look how this connects back to Arduin. Especially for those of us and with who I played with. And, you know, for the longest time, so many people have pooped on me for talking about the way I played and totally disagreeing. And, you know, the constant argument, that's not old school. That's not the way we played in the 80s. That's not the way we played in the 70s. That's not the way we played in the early 90s. You know, we play the way Gygax intended. We play rules as written, blah, blah, blah. I'm old school. This is how I play. And my argument has always been, no, it is not. Nobody I know played the way you guys claim you played. Well, now I feel justified because I just met a whole bunch of people who are like, oh yeah, we totally played that way. So there's the West Coast style. I guess there's the Midwest Central style, and there's the East Coast style. So I don't know, maybe it'll break down to like a West Coast, East Coast rap war. Gygax players versus Hargrave players or whatever. I don't know. It was really exciting for me. You could tell, you could feel my excitement as I'm talking. So you know how excited I am to see this game come to fruition. So yeah, we'll have more news on that. So that's it. That's the updated on all the news. Yay. I don't know, man. I'm excited to see Riker and Wesley at a D&D game together because we know the shit Wheaton has said about his time on Star Trek. He's probably said shit about Frakes. We know the shit he said about Critical Role. He has definitely made himself, you know, public enemy in a lot of ways. So it'll be interesting to see him and Frakes together. Till next time, hope you enjoy this. If you do, let me know. If you never want to hear me again, let me know. Check out the links down below to the Emperor's Choice interview. I show up at about the second hour. Thank you again, Shadow and Sun, for inviting me to join your live stream last night. And I will talk to you all later. We're supposed to have weird rain, weird weather today, so drive careful.